Hello. Greetings. Welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. Today, Conversation with Tony Mobley is simulcast on both YouTube and LinkedIn Live. Welcome radio listeners in Cincinnati, Ohio on Z98. And you can hear us on the radio by going to z98fm.com. On Conversations with Tony Mobley today, I am talking to Marcel J., former radio personality, technologist, app developer. He is all of that in a bag of chips, and he's with me today. We're going to have a great conversation. This is episode 95 of Conversations with Tony Mobley. Thanks to everyone for being a part of the journey. I want to thank the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley for all of your hard work. And here is some more work for you guys. I want you to go to conversationwithTonyMobley.com. There you can register courtesy of an interactive chat called Mukana, courtesy of Alex Lindsay in 090. With that Mukana chat, you have the ability to put in your questions. And not only do you have the ability to put in your questions can be voted up and down. That's right. And so we ask that you go to the website, conversationwithTonyMobley.com. There you can put in your questions, and those questions can be voted up and down. And if you don't want to ensure that your question will be answered, then you can go ahead and put your question in YouTube, and prayerfully we'll get to it. But this is a way that you can almost guarantee that your question will get answered if you go to Conversation with Tony Mobley. And so now we are going to get started with this conversation today. And I am going to be able to share everyone who is listening and watching with my good friend, Marcel. And so we want to say hello and greetings, Marcel. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hey man, hey. First of all, let me apologize for the low light. I was out at this convention, and I just stopped here. I thought I'd be home by now at my studio, but glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. Definitely.
So you got to tell them where you are, though.
Yeah, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, and there's a convention for the NAB show. The NAB here at the convention center, and broke away to get a little something to eat. And we had this interview, and I couldn't wait, man. I've been preparing and waiting for this. I was so excited, Tony, because I love talking to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we're going to go with our very first question. Who is Marcel?
Nobody, nobody. I'm just uh, I'm a Marine first. I love it. When I went to the Marine Corps out of high school, um, it was just something to do, and adventurous, and it was fun and all that. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I was like, man, I went to the Marine Corps boot camp. I think the same. So I'm a Marine, and glad to serve my country. But I'm also just a regular guy, man. Like to have fun. It sounds kind of, I don't know what it sounds like, but that's just me, man. Just a fun-loving guy, simple person. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. How did your family influence who you are becoming?
I don't know. I'm the youngest of nine kids, so I'm sure there's some kind of influence in there somewhere when you're vying for attention. And I think most people who come from large families like that, same brothers and sisters, my one father. I think one of the major influences was vying for attention. When you're the youngest of nine in a crowded household, it's like me over here. So I think part of my overall influence comes from that, wanting to kind of be the outspoken or seen person in the room, and then being in radio kind of helps when you're that kind of personality. Um, as far as uh, just my upbringing, my mother and father were very strict. They were just on it. They were like, look, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Listen, this is what it is. And that's all it was. So
Wow.
the influence is
Yeah, yeah. You're the youngest of nine, and I'm the oldest of seven. So we have that in common. Large family. Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, we have a question from Lou Perez of um, Arizona. He says, "What was the most exciting thing you saw at NAB this year?"
for me, there was so many exciting, and I stayed close to the tech part where it consists of other developers, you know, because I'm a developer as well, and just being able to talk to different developers and share ideas. I use a 360 camera a lot, the Insta 360 camera when I do my lives and things like that. And we'll see some of that stuff on YouTube and things like that. But I ran into the guys who create that camera, you know, young kids too from China. And in
Okay.
2018, I went to the NAB as well, and I ran into them. So it was very exciting to run into this little young guy. And he remembered me from 2018, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And he was like, Marcel, hey, man. I mean, I was, I'm telling Tony, I couldn't believe it because here's my little NAB badge, and this right here I had on. It just popped off. As a matter of fact, I had this on, but it was inside of inside of my coat when I had it, right. And I looked down and said, "Well, how does he know my name?" Right? And he sure did. He said, "Yeah, I remember you." So it's exciting times like that went on there at the NAB, running into people who I've run into before and just chopping it up and just the technology. It's, I guess that's the best way to answer the question. You know, just a bunch of different things that were very exciting. So the most exciting, it's hard to pick out the most exciting. Like you remember when the guy just remembered. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Well, thank you so much. And Lou, thank you so much for your question. Continue to ask questions, community. All right. The next question is, what does the military have to do with who you are? You sort of you touched on that already.
Yeah.
Let's do a little bit of a deeper dive because you've shared some things with me um, about the things that the military did in terms of discipline and structure. I was wondering if you could speak to those things.
Yeah, and even tying it in with the question, what the military did for me, it did a lot. You know, when you're a young guy, I'm born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, kind of a rough city. You know, anybody who's seen The Wire, you know, they had like a little mini series or whatever it was actually, but pretty rough. And my family, as we talked about earlier, my mom and dad, they were strict. They were disciplinarians. They were born in the late 30s, early 40s, that generation, right? Which is most people's grandparents, but those are my parents. And they gave me, you know, that at home discipline and stuff like that. But when I went to the Marine Corps, it was a whole different level of discipline that I have today. You know, that you can do it thing. You know what I mean? So I would say I credit a lot of what I do today to being a young kid who never did anything and to going into the Marine Corps and then that structure, that discipline, and I mean it sticks with me forever. I always wear my Marine Corps cap wherever I go, just so I can run into other Marines and other people in the military, because it's so cool to talk to these guys from. I mean, I talked to World War II veterans, some of that are still alive, and man, the most honorable people on the planet was themselves, you know. And you hear their stories, and even Vietnam vets, and I agree with that war, but these guys are, and the last point I make about that is these guys are people who, um, I always put it like this. People say, hey, thanks for your service, you know. And it means a lot to me when people say that, because it's not about the wars we've gone to or our country's sent us to, whether we agree or not. But I tell them thank you, and then I say, thanks for saying thank you. And then I say, listen, the reason I say thanks to you is because we appreciate when you recognize that. It's not that we want to pat on the back or anything like that. What we're excited about is that we know, just like I'm in this building here, we got security in here at the door, and America's the same way. What we do is we take 3 or 4 or 6 years out of our lives to be security, just to be counted. And if it wasn't for that, they would come right in this country, whoever that might be, and take over. So it's the security that we represent, not the wars that we ultimately may have to go to. So that's the whole thing. When I get to talking about the military, I'm telling you, you get the whole thing. So basically, that's what it has a lot to do with me and my the way I am today. Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to add to those who are listening. One of the things that I always ask of guests who will appear on Conversation with Tony Mobley is I always ask for a picture. And the very first picture that Marcel sent me was him in his Marine uniform. So
Yes,
that
indeed.
that lets you know how serious he is about his commitment and his gratitude for his time and service. The next question is, where did you get your training in radio?
I didn't have any training. I basically it's another little story. I'm a storyteller. Okay, so you're gonna have to cut me off though. But when I got out of the Marine Corps, because I was going to stay in, I loved it, and I said, "Well, let me get out and try see what's going on out here." It was my first job in the Marine, and I ran into a buddy of mine named Howard G in Baltimore, Maryland. Some people who are listening from that area, they would know him because he's kind of known there. And we would walk to school in the city, in the school, and I watched a lot of TV. So I would just do impressions from just TV shows I liked, and we walk to school and laugh. They would say, "Hey, do this and do that." I'm like, it's just from hearing it. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I ran into Howard. I was in South Carolina. I came back home for a brief moment to just kind of say hey to the family and then go back out on my quest. And Howard had managed to get on one of the local radio stations in Baltimore, and he was so excited. He told all the people on the radio he was doing a morning show. Man, I know a guy can sound just like Michael Jackson. Man, I'm telling you, he's just bragging. And he called me that morning. It was early in the morning, and he called me. He said, "Man, dude, this was like 1990, so Michael Jackson was big then. Man, dude, Michael Jackson, man, come on, man." And I'm thinking like, are you serious? First of all, you woke me up. It's 4:35 in the morning. In my mind, I'm thinking like, come on, Howard, come on, man. We had just briefly talked. And in the morning, your voice is heavier. So I wasn't even trying to, and I had done that kind of stuff for years. Anyway, I was in the Marine Corps. So I just did it. And I was like, "Hi, this is Michael. I want to say to all the people, listen, Howard is the best." And I think I just kind of went into the whole character. And they were like, "Wow." Plus it was over the phone, which the phone kind of hides a lot where it really kind of can sound like that character, right? And the next day, man, they called and said, "Hey, man, we want you to be a part of our morning show. We're just getting it together." So I didn't have any formal training. I just kind of jumped in there. And the rest is history, man. I've been doing morning radio. I've been a program director in Dayton, Ohio. I was a program director for a station called WDHT back in 95, somewhere, 2005, somewhere there. Russ Parr Morning Show. I've done a lot in radio. And it all started right there. So the radio part being on air, I don't know, Tony. I don't know how this sounds for other radio people. I think anybody can be on the radio. Anybody can read or write or speak. And Power 107.9, you're inside the best variety of hits and oldies coming up. We've got a chance for you to pick up tickets. It's just, anybody can do that. But for me, it was fun doing mornings where I was able to create these bits and do parody songs and all the creative stuff. I love doing creative stuff. So, yeah, told you got to stop me because I got stories.
Well, I am going to stop you from this standpoint. Everybody probably can do it. Everybody can't do it well.
Okay.
I think because I've had an opportunity to be around a lot of radio personalities recently since I've been a part of the office hours community
Mhm.
um, and conversation with Tony Mobley. And so I hear their stories and I know that, like you said, anyone can be on the radio, but it doesn't mean that everyone can do radio well. And you have
Absolutely.
done well.
Well,
And
thanks, man.
so, and I know that because we have a mutual friend who we're not going to talk about right now, but we will
Yeah.
talk about before this conversation is over.
I
And I
can, I
did
want to
ask,
mention him. I want to mention him now if it's okay. And I'm sorry I cut you
okay,
off
go ahead.
because it fits into this conversation. Let me tell you something. From 1990 to 93. Now, Tony, I just told you I'm brand new in radio. I don't know about radio. I just know somebody saw something in me and I was able to get on. So Lee Michaels is who we're talking about, right? And let me tell you something. 1993, I had about 3 years in radio. I'm still green. And then what people may or may not know about radio, there was a whole company that came in and purchased the station that I worked for. And they typically just get rid of everybody and bring in their people. Well, Lee was one of these consultants. Lee's a big deal. They brought Lee in. Lee's the guy that goes around and consults radio and say, look, this is what you guys need to do to get to number one. Lee's that guy, right? He's the fixer. And he just saw something in me, man. He was like, this kid right here, they say, because I used to hang around at the radio station because I loved it, right? And he said, the word on the street is this kid comes here all the time, even after shift, and blah, blah, blah. And Lee, they were blowing everybody out. And Lee said, hey, you want a job? You want to do the 6 to 10? That's the night thing. He said, okay, I tell you what, I'm gonna call you back. Go at home, and I'm gonna call you back and I'm gonna make you the night guy, right? And everybody else is gone. And I was like, man, call me. I was pacing around, and he called me. In fact, no, I called him because he's real busy. I said, hey man, you said you were gonna call me. I mean, I don't know. He said, yeah, come on up. And the rest is history. And I stayed in there, and then that helped me develop too for years, man. So Lee knows Lee is that's my man right there. Yeah,
All right,
Lee's just that kind of
fantastic.
guy. But yeah,
Very cool. And so we now have a request. Is it okay for us to hear from Denzel Washington?
that's one of the. Yeah, Denzel is one of. I was on the Russ Parr show from 2005 to 2010, something like that. In DC, we were syndicated, and I used to always do we do different characters. So I would call in as Denzel, and they would play it off. And one time we had Denzel call into the station to promote a movie, but then we would like mess with him. I busted in on the line, and they said, "Oh, wait a minute, Denzel, we got a caller on." And I would say, hey, what's going on? This is Denzel Washington. How is everybody? Everybody all right? And Denzel said, oh, come on, man. Who is this? Get out of here, right? I said, no, you get out of here, son. I'm the real Denzel. You're an imposter. And I can't appreciate you trying to sound like me, son. Huh? Right? And he just started laughing. He just laughed uncontrollably. And he said, come on, man. I said, come on, man. You come on, man. I knew everything he would say, I would say. And oh, man, the audience loved it. That's probably one of my greater moments doing it. But I would always use the Denzel Washington from, that very popular movie Training Day. So, because he has different cadences. Like when he was at the award show when Will Smith had, with the thing that went down with Chris Rock and Will Smith, he was more of a quieter, consoling Denzel. And I remember he told Will, he said, come here, son, let me tell you something. Okay? Every time you're at the top of your game, that's when the devil comes for you, son. And that's the more quiet. It's more quiet sometimes. So wait a second, he'll get quiet. And then he'll get a little loud, and then he'll pause right there. Huh? Just like that. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. So it's cadence, right? It's just different ways that he speak, and with a little raspiness in your voice, and he stutters sometimes, and a little New York accent, not strong, but yeah, it's there. So, I hear those things, and I can kind of mimic some of that stuff. So
Well,
there it
thank you
is.
for that. Thank you for bringing Denzel Washington Conversations with Tony Mobley. Thank you so much for that. We have a question from Kyle Hammond, And
Right.
Kyle's question is, do you do any work training or cultivating the next generation of radio artists?
Well, I like to think I do. You know what I mean? I like to think I do indirectly, by being an example of what you can do. And the next generation of radio to me is vastly different from the radio I belong to, the generation of radio I belong to. As you know, it's all changing, it's digital. The delivery system is totally different, meaning how we get it to you. Like they don't even sell radios anymore. Think about that, right? Go to the store and say, I want to, you guys have any my FM radio? They don't have them, right? Because we're using these devices and we're using digital radio stations. That's at the forefront now. So what I try to do is just, do what I do. And when I encounter people doing radio or broadcasting, i.e. podcasting, I try to drop some information that I think might be helpful, but you just have to kind of, in my opinion, just drop them those little what they call gems and let them pick them up. Because when you try to listen, man, you're doing it wrong. There's really no wrong. It's really a perspective that you have. But one thing that I will say that I think rings true, and that is if uh, it's about likability with anything, radio, TV, any of this stuff. Likability and relatability. People can relate to you and they like you, and then you're consistent. Get out of here. You got it done, right? Now, obviously, content is king, but content is king because people will like you and they can relate to you. I've been places where people, in my opinion, weren't that great, but your cousin, you can be horrible on the radio, but your cousin and your mama, he's great. Are you kidding me? He's the greatest because they like you and they can relate to you. Your job is to get
Right.
the whole audience to like you and be able to relate to you. So it's the whole thing. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that answer. We have another question. It's how did you get started with Meerkat, Blab, Periscope, and other platforms?
Oh man, well, coming from radio, because I've been doing radio and I still do it. I have my own radio station and we can get into that later. But coming from radio, it was a natural thing for me to be on, right? And to want to, it's exciting. It still is. It was very exciting when I found out that we could now have our own radio or TV station even, right? We can be seen and heard and so somewhere around, I guess, even like 2005, 6, 7, before the iPhone, I remember streaming, right? It wasn't widely, it wasn't mainstream, at least in this country, right? Other people were streaming. And people were streaming before that. But I'm saying, I remember I had a Palm Trio, a phone, before the iPhone came out. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to stream on there. There was a streaming. There was an app. There was an actual app on the web called Flixwagon. I wonder if anybody remembers that. It was called Flixwagon, and it was so cool that you could take your Palm Pilot and stream into it, just like we do today. And it was all like it would move because we didn't have the bandwidth. The internet was and you would be like this moving, right? But it was incredible, right? Um, so so I remember using that, and then you know, I remember they came in. We were doing a morning show on the Russ Park show out of DC. It was a syndicated show, uh, and we were in Cincinnati too. The Wiz on Cincinnati. We were syndicated there as well. But anyway, they brought in the um, the iPhone, and I had that Palm Treo. I loved it, and I was like, "Oh man, we gotta use these." Just they were promoting the first iPhone, and we had to use them to we got them on there. And they gave us all one. And I remember I was like, man, the buttons on it. I was like, I can't. I don't want this. But then afterwards, I fell in love with it. So, bringing the whole story around, I've been really streaming and messing around with it long before Blab and all that. But it became mainstream with Blab and Meerkat. You know what I mean? That's when
Yeah.
it really became mainstream for a lot of people in America. And I fell deeply in love with it to this day. I love it. Yeah.
So you would describe yourself as a technologist streamer prior to 2015, 20. Is
Yeah.
that the time when we were sort of hanging out on Meerkat and Blab and
Yeah.
Periscope?
Oh, yeah. It was 2014, 15 because you remember Meerkat came to came out and it was really Periscope for those that remember Periscope, right? It was Meerkat first, and what happened was Twitter was already out, of course, but it wasn't streaming like that. And they picked up they put that on their platform because they used their platform for people to go to Meerkat, which was it was really built into their platform, and it was popular. You remember,
Yeah.
and then Twitter did a little number on Meerkat because a developer had built Periscope, and then I guess they purchased Periscope and took Meerkat off. Remember, because we were like, "What happened to Meerkat?" And Periscope
Yeah.
was there, and that's what really got people all into it. Like the whole live streaming with Periscope and stuff, and that's when and then I think Blab, or maybe Blab was, I can't remember where Blab fit in. It was
Blab was
somewhere.
kind of
Do you
sandwiched
remember?
between Meerkat and
Periscope.
Periscope because
And
it
we
was
loved it because it
everybody
was,
was
go
on
ahead, man.
Meerkat, then everybody went to Blab, then everybody went to Periscope, and for a while Blab was going back and forth between Periscope, and then Periscope eventually was the main thing in terms of
What we
streaming for
loved about Blab, though, I
everyday
remember
people.
what we loved about Blab was it allowed us to have like two screens. You could talk to somebody on your screen, and none of the others had that. So we were like, Blab is it, right?
Yeah,
And that's when I
yeah,
met you, man, and a whole bunch of people we met over there.
yeah.
And
It
it's just
was
been it's
it
just
was
been
it
great.
was fantastic. Blab was fantastic, and I'm in some ways I'm sorry that it went the way of the dodo bird, but in other ways I think we wouldn't have what we have now if it were not for it and it ending. So that was very cool. And
Yes.
well, we have another question that says, please share what you can about your remote broadcast, particularly Hawaii.
Let's see, what was I doing? Oh, okay. So by the time I was doing some stuff in Hawaii, okay, so another long story. But I guess we got a little time, don't we?
We got
Um,
time.
so again, all stemming from radio. So right around 2010, a lot happened with me. Now you got to imagine, I'm already doing some streaming and stuff like I'm already doing it. We weren't at Black or that yet, but it was out there still. They had apps like I still have them on my device and everything. They don't work, but they're still there. There was something called twit casting. I don't even know if anybody ever heard of it. Twit casting.
I still have it on my phone.
Right. You remember in Hawaii, I used to
Yeah,
use that.
yeah,
So
I still
twit
have it.
casting, which is, let me just say real quickly, dynamic app. Way back in 2010, this app was blowing it out the water even for now, right? It's amazing. And then there were apps like I want to talk about this. So let me see about this. There were so many apps that were rock star apps that just went away, and sometimes we don't know, but sometimes these people with this big money they can purchase those apps and shelve them, so they're not in no competition or anything like that. But there were I, but I would use third party encoders like we use today, and there was an app called Rico Live. There wasn't many out there that does what a switcher, and a great job at being a switcher. Rico Live with this app, and I purchased for like $10. The whole thing was $10, right? And I used to use that, and I created a rig, man. I'm telling you, I was one of these people. I love it, right? I created this rig where you ever see like a flagpole sticks on that little slant, right? And then it would have like two. I put it on a bar. I had it welded, a flagpole welded to a bar like this with two lips on it, and I would stick that under my belt, and then the flagpole would stick out, and I would put a stick in there and have my phone on the on the on the grip. It would be on there, so I'm hands free, and I'm walking around with that follow me wherever I move. streaming in Hawaii, and people just loving it because I used to stream for companies. I did a whole business with it. I would, and you can still do this today, but it's so saturated now. But back then, nobody was doing anything. And when I was in radio, we used to do these live streaming uh, promotions, right? You know how Joy so and so live at A&A car dealership today or whatever. And I remember that. So I bought a vehicle, a little Ford Edge. It was a used car. And I wrapped the vehicle and called it New Radio, right? Had an app for it and everything that I built because I got into coding, learning the code. So I built this little fun app. And I would go around and just like we would do with radio, and say, hey, man, listen, let me come out and stream to your social media. Because then Facebook was huge. And again, we weren't streaming yet on Facebook. 2010, 11, 12, 13, right? And I would use the same thing we did with radio. Now, I know how everything works in radio. There's sales to if they want you to come out live, how it all works. I know how much it costs too. It costs a lot of money, right? So I would go to them and say, hey, listen, I can pack this place, little mom and pop shop, right? You know what a Subway sandwich shop looks like? And typically they have about 10 chairs, 5, 7 chairs. About 30 people on any day, 30 to 40 people will make that place look like this because they're really small. And most little
Mm-hmm.
mom and pop shops that sell pizza or whatever, and they have a few chairs in there, you can do that. So I used to stream directly to their Facebook page, right? All I would have to do is give them the code, give them the little code that they could put on there, and it would be embedded right in their page. They don't let you do that way anymore. And when I stream to that page, what happens is everybody who already knew them, because they would have signs in their windows at their shops, download, like us on Facebook. Remember, everybody was doing that. We had so many people typically on their Facebook page that when I went live, everybody saw me. And I was like, for an hour, we're out here live. We got the truck. I would have a little prize. We were giving out T-shirts. I would go to other vendors in the mall and say, give me some T-shirts. We're going to talk about the stuff. Give me what you got. Give me, and I would have plenty of stuff to just give away to people. And it became like a little festival. And they would now typically, if they're going to pay the radio station $2 to $3 or $4,000, so that's what they charge to come out and stream live for a 2-hour broadcast on the radio, then just pay me $1,500, $2,000. I'll come out for an hour. I was doing this back in 2012, 2011, 2010. And I was just having a ball, just doing radio like we did it, but I flipped it to that, right? Oh man, so I forget what the question was now, but I'm telling you, I was streaming, before.
You were streaming. That was part of the Hawaii
Yeah,
broadcast that you were doing.
yeah, and I would
You
go
were
to
doing it at
Hawaii. I
different
picked out
places
regions.
in Hawaii
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, I picked out regions. So one time, my wife and I we went to just took a trip to Hawaii, and when everywhere I go, I would make sure I was popping to people's stores and saying, "Hey, listen, this is what I do." So the next time we come to Hawaii, I got business, right? I can stream to them. We pay to go and fly there, make sure we connect with them. And then when I get to Hawaii, we do the live. They pay me. When we leave, we make a gang of money and have a Hawaii trip. Same thing with cruises. Cruises, you don't have to have a deal with the cruise ship. There's so many people who have businesses who have 500 people that do a cruise or 300 or 150 or whatever at family reunions. And I'm the host for their event and stream or record it and chop it up. And oh man, let me tell you something. There's so many ways to make thousands of dollars if you love doing this stuff and you love being around people. Hey, listen, I carry a microphone with me wherever I go. I have a little bag, and because I never know when I want to break out and have a wireless mic and like, hey, broadcast live. Now I'm on my AirPods right now, and they've had like wireless things like AirPods, but not exactly this. If you take this AirPod out of your ear and you stick it under this windscreen, you trick it into thinking it's in your ear. So now you've got a wireless mic. Just like you can go, I can go back here, Tony. You can hear me just the same as if I'm up there with the wireless mic. So just little cool things that I've been doing over the years. Just having a ball. It's fun.
Amazing, amazing,
Yeah.
and I just want to let the audience know that I have actually had an opportunity to witness Marcel doing the things that he's talking about. And I tell you that at that time, there was no one doing what he was doing in terms of that whole radio experience for businesses, and he was doing it from Hawaii. He was interacting with businesses in Hawaii, and
California. We
um,
picked out a region. Yep. California, Arizona, of course, here in Vegas, and anywhere we would travel, I would say, man, I gotta get back here. And then just talk to people. So yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, definitely. Yeah.
it was an amazing thing to see. And if you have some of the old video of that, I would share it at some point.
I
I
do.
think
I
people
do.
will get a
It's
kick
right
out of
on
it.
Vimeo. Vimeo has my stuff from 2011, 10, Land Rover of Las Vegas. Man, you just kind of taking me back now because I'm thinking about it. The Land Rover dealership. I went in there to get something done to my truck, and this was like probably 2011, and nobody was streaming. And I heard, you know how car dealerships will have the whatever music playing, and at that time it was Pandora or whatever. And I told the guy, I said, "Hey Rick," I said, "Where's that music on?" He said, "Yeah, we got a. Oh yeah, man, we got Pandora. We pay when it comes through." He was all excited. I said, "Hey man, listen. How about if you had your own radio station that played 24? Some people are running like something like in this mall. So anyway, how about if you had your own radio station that played 24 hours a day, and then you played that through there, and in between each song, hey, you're listening to Land Rover Radio. You need some wiper blades? See Dave in the back. He'll help you. Or whatever your little quick ads are, right? He was like, wow, you can do something like that? And boy, did I smile. I was like, well, as a matter of fact, right? I forget. I said, as a matter of fact, not only can we do that, but we can build that into an app for you guys. Now, keep in mind, this is 2011, 12. People just weren't really into apps like that. And I wound up being able, they didn't have an app. I wound up being able to build them an app with that radio station built into it. And it just basically listed all the cars and did a few things, notifications, whatever. And for years, uh, it was great being connected with them until they moved to Land Rover USA, and then they had to work under their apps or their things, and they kind of discontinued it. But
Right.
so just being creative, I guess, and just having fun, man.
So we're back to talking about Lee Michaels. So
Yes.
he's an amazing human being, and he was on Conversation Tony Mobley, I think 3 weeks ago, the end
Yeah.
of March, and we had a great conversation. And I don't know if I told you, but we had an extended conversation after the show ended. We were talking about a lot of different things, and he was talking about how good I look. And it's not a secret. I don't mind sharing people that my
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
camera is an actual iPhone, and it is a 10s Max. I am using Michael Forrest's Shoot app with an ATEM Mini, and it goes into it's in my port one, and I'm using the Shoot app and an Apple adapter, so it's HDMI going out of my iPhone, and I think I look pretty good.
You look
And so,
extremely well with that.
well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, it's I just want to sort of piggyback on some of the things that you have already said in terms of the amazing things that you are doing. There is a lot of opportunity for people to do some amazing things in technology, and one of the reasons why I lifted up Lee Michaels, because he was doing some outside of the box things when I first met him. Matter of fact, when I met the two of you, you both were doing some things that were outside of the box, outside of the norm, outside of mainstream, that most people
Mm.
don't think about doing or even have the idea that they could do it. And so I share my setup because I think that it's encouraging. I tell the story oftentimes for those who are listening. I am a part of the office hours community, and I'll say it real quick. It is a community that was started at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was hosted by Alex Lindsay. And it has mushroomed and grow to an astounding level. There are over 1,000 consecutive shows that have been daily broadcast every day of the week for
Mm,
2 hours.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
there is an extended community that interacts the other remaining 24, 22 hours left in a day. And so it is outstanding opportunity to learn a lot of different things about technology. And I was one of those people who just sort of found them because I was still rocking Marcel, I was still rocking my 2012 MacBook Pro, and it just didn't measure up in 2020 when the pandemic
Mm.
started. So it was very interesting. I came in there with nothing, and didn't look good, didn't look light, everything sounded horrible, all that kind of stuff. And but I only mention these things because I think it's important to think about using whatever you have and making it work for you. So I had this old iPhone that I basically took from my phone from my son who's going to throw it away. And so
Right.
I am able to use it as my primary camera. So I think
Wow.
that's very cool.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Lee, if you're listening, ask Marcel some questions that only
Is
you and
Lee
he
there?
know about. And we have
Man.
another question. Please talk about your latest professional projects, the things that you can talk about.
Um, yeah, I'll talk about anything. The only things I don't talk about are things that I'm still kind of working on trying to get right. Because one thing we do in radio, like I remember working in radio, and when you're on the radio, and people know back in the day, when you work on the radio, they always give you the demo, right? Hey man, check out the demo. And it sounds good. And if we play it on the radio, people will love it, but it's not ready. It's not in stores. They can't get it. It's gotta already be all together because you can't get people all hyped and happy to hear about something and then they can't go and get it. They're not gonna keep checking back for it. So that's the only reason if I don't mention certain things because I'm not ready. When you mention it and it sounds good to people, you want them to be able to get it. So there'll be another time if we want, we can do one of these. But
Absolutely.
I've
There
been
will
working on
be.
I've been working on a few projects and I'm just kind of like finalizing some things, making sure they're ready to go and having fun doing that. I've grown from just doing radio to really focusing on social media, live streaming apps, and then in a different way and stuff like that. So, and it's no secret. It's just that stay tuned though, because some great things are going to
Absolutely.
become
So
about.
you
And
all heard
yeah,
it
I gave you a little
here.
sneak peek. Yeah,
You all heard it here. Stay tuned. He will be
yeah.
back. He
Yeah.
will be back. And he might bring Denzel with him. So, so thank you, Marcel. Can you talk about the importance of diversity in technology?
Yeah, it's very important to have diversity everywhere, right? Especially in technology, because uh, you know, as a collective, as a part of a African American or Black or whatever collective, there, in my estimation, I don't think we have enough Black people in certain aspects of technology. Where but just not just black and brown people, but just all different people because this thing is vast and everybody should take a piece of this stuff. Like for instance, coding. Sometimes when I talk to people about coding, um, you can go to the Apple store, right? And they will sit you down, just like they will sit you down and teach you about the phone or whatever. They'll teach you down and teach you how to start coding from the beginning steps of it. And I happen to have this iPad Mini here. I carry this around in my little bag too, just a few items, right? And right on here, you can download an app called Swift Playgrounds, right? Swift is a programming language at Apple. And I can guarantee you, I used to have it on here, but I have it on my bigger Mac at home. But I tell you, man, let me see. I may have it. I just want to hold up if it's here. Um, and you can start learning to code right there. And it's a lot simpler than it was 10 years ago. Believe me. And I think they really just want to get people. Here's a little app I built right here. There's some of the code. I don't know if you can see that. This is you can because of the M1 chip and what they've done with these iPads, you can actually build apps in. You just can't see it, but you can actually build apps in here. Now they're not going to be the app for like Instagram or nothing like that, but like a little weather app and stuff like that. You can learn to code by just grabbing Swift Playgrounds in the App Store. It's free, and they got like beginning courses and stuff. Or just call the Apple Store and say, "Hey, listen, just start somewhere because it's not what it used to be. I'm not saying it's just amazingly easy and anybody can code, but I think everybody should be looking at it. And if it's for you, it's for you. And if it's not, then hate yourself. But I know for me, I'm not one of these guys. I'm not tech man. And remember you asked a question about the Marine Corps or the military or whatever. And I think that's part of it. Like when I wanted to get my own app, I had an app that I purchased back in 2009. Uh, and then I said, oh, I want to learn how to do this, because they were just starting out opening it up. And when I first looked at that code, because back then for Apple's platform, it was Objective C, right? If people code and stuff. And that was nothing like it is now. We still use that. Some developers still use that. But uh, but I guarantee you, it was much more difficult than it is now. Now it's so simple. So I want to inspire everybody to learn the code. Call your Apple store and say, hey, listen, do you have programming classes? And they will tell you, yeah. And you go there and you start there, just get your feet wet, and you'll see if it's something you may like or not. But for me, um, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do this, but I stuck with it because it was that Marine Corps not giving up on stuff. I mean, not trying to make it a big story, but yeah, I have this thing where, man, you ain't gonna kick my butt. Let's get it. Come on with it. Let's go, right? And so many times, being in the Marine Corps, I was faced with that, like with you know, the only way through is that way, right? Just that way. You got to go. Got to go through it. And I remember many times, and this is the last thing I say about it, but I just want to inspire people. This is very inspirational if you ask me. I remember so many times just tasks, where I felt like, okay, the worst that can happen is I'm going to die. That's the worst. And we're going to die anyway. I don't have a death wish or anything. I'm saying we're going to die. So I'm not going to not try to do something or make it if I can. And the worst thing can happen if I die. And so many times I had to been in helicopter crashes, different things. And I remember being in a helicopter crash looking at, like I'm looking at you and one of my buddies, and we wouldn't be like, but we were like, we look at each other like, yo, this is it, man. This is the one. Oh, right. We're calm. There's nothing you can do. And but then when it's not it, somehow some resilience is born from that. And you're like, or going up that mountain and not falling off, or whatever it is, right? It's something about that. And everybody has that, going to the service for that. Everybody has challenges that they've overcome, is what I'm trying to say. And that is where you have to dig from when it's something that it's a little more challenging for you. And challenge yourself anyway. So that's all.
Very cool. I just want to say one thing about Swift, make you laugh. And so we, at the beginning of the pandemic, we have the Mobley siblings, all seven of us meet on a Zoom meeting every Sunday since the pandemic. We don't miss. And I would talk to them about sharing with their children, because most of my siblings are like me, quite elderly, and they have grandchildren and children, and so I would always talk to them about doing Swift, because I looked at it from the standpoint of playing a game, and the game teaches you how to code while
That's
you're playing the
exactly
game.
yeah.
In order to play
That's
the
exactly
game, you
right.
got to code. And I would talk about it so much, and then I would share it in I ended up sharing it in after hours. I mean, office hours on education on Saturdays, and then my siblings said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Share it in office hours because we tired of you we tired of you talking to us about coding. We tired of you talking to us about coding." And so, but I think that's the way to go. If you have an opportunity to teach your children and grandchildren, teach them about coding, particularly with something. All you need is an Apple device, and it's free, and
Yeah.
you can play a game and learn how to code. And
And just start somewhere, man. That's all. Like, and you, because you never know, you could love it. Like, I think people have this perception that coders are these people born with a third brain or something, and they just different. It's just people who just like you and me. And I'm not that guy. I'm not the hey, it's a computer man. That's not me. I'm just a regular dude who
yeah.
learned this stuff, and it gets simpler and simpler all the time. And next thing you know, we're gonna be just dragging and dropping and just making apps like that, I guess, because it's getting really, really
Yeah,
easy.
and you know, my family is so funny, and a lot of my nieces and nephews, they see me coming, they go the other way because they know I'm going to start talking something about technology. But one of the things I share with them, I said, hey, you spending all that money on Xbox and PlayStation and all of that. Why don't you create your own game? It's not that hard
Hmm.
if you want to invest the time in learning how to do it. I didn't make any headway with that, but it's really something that I encourage people, particularly if you have young children and people that are still in K through 12. Add that to their list of things that you want them to learn, because people who are able to contribute to society are the people that are going to be able to weather whatever storms we may face. And I just wanted, it won't hurt to know a little bit of coding. That's all I'm saying. So thank you so much for sharing that, Marcel.
Yeah,
Please talk
absolutely.
about the things that inspire you.
What inspires me? Again, what we're talking about now. I'm old school, and I I'm very inspired by almost everything that we do today having to do with things regarding social media, what we can do now. Because when I came up like you, Tony, and Lee, we only had three TV channels, three major networks, and that's all we had. Like for years, like coming up as teenagers almost. And I remember when cable TV started coming through, and I was living in the inner city, and they came us last, right? So, um, but to be able to do what we can do now, like just like this is a TV show right here, and we can just I'm out at the mall, right, doing a TV talk show with you, an interview, and this is inspirational for me. This inspires the heck out of me because the sky's the limit. There's so much we can do. You know what I mean? I built an app that has its own 24-hour radio station in it, and on top of that, it works a lot like the apps that I like cross between Instagram and TikTok, and it's just I don't even want to get all into it, but I'm very inspired by today's technology because it's not so much being able to code; it's the idea. I think I'm a very creative person. It's the idea, and that's what inspires me. So much out there that we can do with an idea. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. We do have a question from the community that I can't quite make out who it's from, but I know it's Brett Ballou
Hey, Brett Ballou.
from Appleton, Wisconsin. All right. Thank you so much for your question. The question is, what are your favorite software or online tools for app development or marketing any of your projects?
Marketing. I usually stay in the lane of social stuff, social media stuff. And by the way, I saw you on my he was on my app, like on my I could when people visit my website or whatever, I can see them pop up. And I remember seeing Chris Thompson come up. But I stick pretty much with the native builds, right? Like Android Studio or with Apple's SDK. For the most part, I mean, I've dabbled in some Flutter and different things, but I usually stick with the native programming platform. Yeah, so it's probably my favorite. Yeah.
And and if you may, I did want to say that I was he is. I don't know if he's unofficially letting me be a beta tester or not, but I was on his app and I had a great time, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I did have a great time, and I encourage all of you to wait with bated breath to have a chance to play with his app when it is
Yeah.
available
And
for
it's really not,
everyone.
look, and because I don't want to overhype it, it's really not that special. It's just something that I'm still working on. And you know, I don't want people kind of checking it out and saying, man, this is really just not finished. But you know, I put it out there for a few people so they can kind of mess around with it. And like you, Tony, I mean, I know, you know, get some real good feedback from you and stuff like that. But again, it's just a very exciting time for everything, like everything under the roof, radio, TV. You know, I like to sing and stuff. I'm not the greatest singer, but I like to be in person. I like to do what they call parody songs, impressions of singers and making fun. Just so much, man. Coming from radio and being able to do this is like, it's like a kid in a candy store. And I believe that we, you know, I think we're all fortunate in that we can do what we love. Hey, listen, if streaming live isn't your thing, or if doing it in the street with lots of people, I'll put my tripod in the middle of the street so the people have to go around me, right, to make sure they see me. And some of them will stop, you know, come back. You know, there's so many more people you can add to your social media that's out there in real life. You don't have to worry about an algorithm because they're there. Nobody's blocking them from you saying hey to them or them coming up to you. I was on Instagram earlier, and for some reason, no, I'm not saying anything against Instagram, but you know, I felt like they kind of keeping my numbers down a little bit. I don't know if that's true or not, whatever. You know, people say, well, they want to make sales. So if they keep your people from coming to visit you, then after you're done, you'll pay to boost for people to see it, right? So maybe that's
Right.
true. But when I'm out in the street, it's just so many people. And they see that bike, they come over, hey, what's going on? And now, oh, by the way, download the app and see this later. Oh, yeah. The streets is the real algorithm, is what I'm trying to say. So it's a lot of fun out there, but I guess you have to be built for that. Some people don't really like to be around a lot of people, and I get that. But I'm just glad. I just love.
Very cool. We're down to the last question. I just want to share with you. Thank you so much for being with me. And this is going to be the very last question. You are speaking to the world. What do you want them to know?
Um, hey, world, have fun, make it fun, do something fun, try to find your fun thing, and do that for a living at whatever age, you know, because you can, I believe. So that's what I say. Because when it's fun for you, then you're not working. There's somebody to pay you to go on a cruise and hang out on a cruise and be a part of their cruise and play around with them. I don't know, but that's what I would say. That's what I've been doing. I've just been having a ball with it. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Marcel. I appreciate you,
Yeah.
man.
So you
Please
too.
feel free to watch Conversation with Tony Mobley on YouTube or my website, conversationwithtonymobley.com. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by valued audio professionals, video professionals who meet daily at Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. Thank you, Z98 FM, LinkedIn Live, YouTube, Conversations with Real People. Last week we had a great conversation with Carrie-Ann Otano from the Vice President of Engagement for Opera Delaware. It was a fantastic conversation. If you missed it, you need to go back and watch it. When you have time, please look at the 90 plus episodes. That's right, 90 plus episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. I think you will find something that you like and hopefully is helpful. Conversation with Tony Mobley can be heard on 98.1fm.com. Our audience in Cincinnati, who is not limited to just Cincinnati, but it's an internet radio station as well. Thanks to Taylor Sonderhouse and the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley for making this happen. Thank you, Marcel, for being a part of our conversation today and for doing the work you do and for being the person who you are. Conversation with Tony Mobley will continue next week, episode 96, with Ms. Keely Dunn. And some say that she is the queen of Discord. So tune in next week to participate in our conversation. Thank you all so much for being with me. Take care. Good night. God bless. Thank you again, Marcel.
Oh, man.
Goodbye, everyone.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.